Kevin Bacon has been in a ton of movies. I said this yesterday, that I don't think you have Seinfeld without Diner, and it's such a great movie. And a lot of it is it's conversation that's not about anything in particular, which I got to believe that Seinfeld or Larry David had to be big fans of Diner. And I tell people, watch Diner. Mickey Rourke's in there, Steve Guttenberg, Ellen Barkin, Kevin Bacon's in that, and Kevin joins us now. The movie R.I.P.D. opens in theaters nationwide on Friday. We'll get to that in a moment. How important was Diner to you, or even now as you look back on it, Kevin?
Oh, yeah, really, really important. I was on a soap opera and not really, enjoying it. I was happy to have the work, but it wasn't really what I would call creatively satisfying. And they offered me a 2-year contract, and I said, I got to go. And I went to no work, basically, and thought, well, if I don't get something in about 2 weeks, I'm going to be back waiting tables again. And I got the audition for Diner about 2 weeks after the soap ended. I went in and it was an audition where they put a bunch of guys together. They were trying to get the, quote unquote chemistry between this group. So they're probably 30 guys or something at this audition screen test. And I ended up with 104 fever of a really, really bad flu. And went in anyway. I had to, because this was the only date that we could possibly audition. And I think that part of that character kind of came from how sick I was at the time, because they seemed to like that. The character was supposed to be slightly drunk through the whole movie, and the flu kind of worked for me. And while the movie wasn't a big commercial success, it was a critical success. And certainly, looking back at it, it was not only, I think, a great film, but also a great time in all of our lives, everybody who was involved with it.
But you also, I just think you had conversation. You guys are at the diner, and there's conversation about nothing. You're talking about your favorite musician, singer to make out to, and you're talking about food. And do you think can you see any of the threads that we see in Seinfeld that stem from Diner? Am I overreaching with something like that?
No, I don't think you're overreaching. I mean, I don't know that. I've never heard that really confirmed, but I certainly don't think you're overreaching. And I do think that someone recently I read was talking about how influenced maybe it was Judd Apatow. Someone was talking about how influenced they were by Diner. Look, I mean, I certainly put that on the list of films that I've been in that I think have made an impact, in terms of its tone, and certainly that was Barry Levinson's first movie, and really put him on the map.
But are you bothered when people want to talk about old movies instead of what you're doing now?
No, I'm not bothered. I mean, sometimes I lose my memory for it, because you've probably heard people say this before, but it really is true. I don't go back and look at them. I sometimes will see scenes if it's some sort of a tribute or something like that, and they put together a bunch of scenes. I'm somebody that does not look in the rearview mirror too much.
But if Animal House comes on, and you know your scene's coming up where you get trampled, will you watch or change the channel?
Not necessarily. If something is on that more. If there's something on that I'd rather watch, I'll skip it. I don't. And look, I mean, that's a great movie too. It's hilarious. I'll tell you what's interesting is that my children were raised not watching my films, not because I told them they couldn't, but because I don't think that they were really interested in seeing their parents as other people. I think they were really more into having us just be their parents. So that always surprises people when they say, "Oh, your kids never watch our movies," and they literally have never watched our movies. But every once in a while now, they're adults, and they'll be with their friends, and they will actually watch something that either one of us did. And so it's kind of fun because, my daughter texted me the other day and went, how old were you when you did Footloose? And I said, 24. She said, I'm watching it now. And I said to her, so what did you think of Footloose? And she said, I liked it. She said, I didn't finish it.
Well, I try to tell my kids about movies, and then you show it to them, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And you say, this is a great movie. And then they watch and they go,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like they'll say, yeah, it's okay. And I'll go, damn, what am I missing here? So even Footloose, my kids didn't want to watch the old one. They wanted to watch the new one. I said, no, the old one's better than the new one. And, they disagreed. They wanted to watch the new one because they knew who some of the people were in the movie.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, well. Can you fit in those Footloose jeans now, if you had to?
Yeah, I probably could.
Wow.
I probably could. I think they'd be a little. I think they'd mostly be a little high-waisted.
He's Kevin Bacon. The movie is R.I.P.D. Opens nationwide theaters. What made you dive into this movie?
I really liked the pedigree of Jeff Bridges, an actor that I've so admired and have followed, and just it was so much fun to get the opportunity to play with him. And Ryan Reynolds, who is hilarious, and again, I think a really great talent and extremely creative and very, very good improviser, and Robert Schwenke, who directed the film, was a guy that I had been wanting to work with for years. He did an amazing German movie called Tattoo, and he was going to direct it. And while I was a little unsure about doing another villain right on the heels of X-Men First Class, I felt like the character, the guy, was such a different man than the guy that I did in X-Men that I thought it would be fun to explore this world of a Boston cop.
And you know what? You also have the great show on Fox, The Following, which is really intense. Like it was more intense than I thought it was going to be. It's like when I watched The Shield with Michael Chiklis. Like you watch and you go, well, this is a little more intense than I thought it was going to. Is it too intense at times for you? Too intense. I like to act, and I like to explore the darker sides of humanity. That's a big part of who I am. The doing 6 or 8 months of blood and gore and murder and all that kind of stuff gets a little. It takes its toll on you. Because you don't go to work to go to a happy place, especially with the character on The Following. He's a really tortured man. He's an alcoholic and has just a lot of issues, and so those are the shoes that you have to walk in every day. So it does take its toll. That being said, I love to act. I really do, and I am so grateful that I have a career and that anybody gives me a gig at all. I'm really blessed. The movie is R.I.P.D. opens nationwide this Friday. Kevin Bacon joining us on the show. Speaking of the other side of humanity, you grew up in Philly, so Eagles-Phillies fan, or have you transferred your allegiance to New York teams?
Well, I've lived in New York since I was 17. So, and in the years before I was 17, I was really not much of a sports fan. I was really into rock and roll and girls. And I really didn't start to follow sports until really into my, late 20s, when I became a Knicks fan. So when it comes to the Eagles and the Giants, I'm a little bit of a flip-flopper. It's the type of thing where, I'm always happy if either one of them has a chance to go all the way. I'm a Knicks fan for sure, and I guess I'd have to say more Yanks than Phils.
Yeah. Well, at least you admit that you're flip-flopper. Before I let you go, one of the guys that works with me, Fritzy, a longtime fan of one of the movies you were in with Wild Things. And Fritzy, your question for Kevin Bacon is what?
How did you feel about Matt Dillon's character and not yours getting the threesome scene with Denise Richards and Nev Campbell in Wild Things?
Yeah, that's a legitimate question,
Yeah,
Kevin.
that was that was one of those moments where I was one of the producers on Wild Things, and that was one of those moments where I thought, what happened here? Why does Matt get that duty?
Yeah, that's bothered
That was
Fritzy
really-
for years. Where he said, "I'd love to ask Kevin Bacon how he felt about that." And Fritzy calls it one of the great movie scenes of all time.
It's definitely top 5.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of all the great movies of all time, I mean, it's right there.
He definitely. That's one of those days when you're going to work on. Yeah, life's not bad.
Well, good luck with the movie and everything else you're doing. Good to talk to you. Thank you, Kevin.
Great to talk to you too.
All right, Kevin Bacon, movie R.I.P.D. opens nationwide on Friday. There's Fritzy. Yeah. There you go, Fritzy.
That was fantastic. You gave me that opportunity just now.
All right. You ask, and you receive.
Day just gets better and better.